Hey again everyone, and welcome back to the channel for the next installment in our weekly news series where we discuss latest going-ons and happenings in the 6-scale world, whether it's new releases, whether it's announcements, right? It's just my opportunity to go over things that stuck in my head that I wanted to touch base on, and that normally my family probably doesn't want to hear about. So you guys get stuck with me for a little bit. And also welcome to the first installment of 2024, and hopefully it's the first of many of this year. Although this week does seem a little light, but there's still some good things to discuss. I'm sure some things that you've already seen, but I've had a chance to process some of these. So we'll start with news, right? And of course, Hot Toys has the first news story, which is with the new year, they announced a couple of new licenses. New is a question, right? Some of these are expected, some of them are questions, and they did say these are only some, right? And there are more that weren't announced, right? They did make a note of that, so that's important to consider. But first of all, they're announcing that they have the Batman 85 year anniversary license, so interesting. Marvel, also 85th anniversary. Star Wars Episode 1, 25th anniversary of that. Star Wars The Dark Side, which is interesting because it's not necessarily related to a specific IP, so I'm curious what that entails. Obviously the dark side, I'm guessing Sith Lords, so I don't know if that's an original line from Hot Toys, if it's going to delve back into all the properties and start giving us Sith characters, which would be problematic for me since that's something that I started focusing on this year, or at the end of last year, picking up lightsaber characters. If they start going Sith Lord crazy, I'm in trouble, right? So we'll see, but that's the biggest question mark. I don't think a lot of these are unexpected, right? I think given the IPs and the figures that we've been getting from Hot Toys for the last years, right? The last couple of years, they do the one-offs, right? We do get a bunch of things like the Feral Predator from Prey, John Wick, right? The two figures from Avatar, right? Hot Toys is doing some individual one-off pieces. The Neo from Matrix Resurrections is a great example of that. But they're heavily focused on Marvel, Star Wars, DC. And DC is definitely the lesser of the three, right? It's definitely been heavy Marvel, heavy Star Wars. I think we're going to see a shift where Star Wars is at the top, but it's going to be those two, right? Those two licenses. So seeing something like seeing something like Marvel 85th anniversary, not surprising, right? Seeing something like Star Wars The Dark Side, again, not surprising. Star Wars Episode 1, 25th anniversary. The only thing I would caution you with this one is we've seen them get Return of the Jedi, the anniversary. We've seen them get Empire Strikes Back anniversary. And then we've seen them not do much. I know a lot of Star Wars fans were very disappointed this year with what we got from the Return of the Jedi anniversary. So the question then becomes, what's going to happen with this Episode 1 anniversary? I've already seen the wish list. Listen, I remember going to see this. First of all, I remember trying to get the trailer. When the first trailer came out for Phantom Menace, people were paying for movie tickets to go see these. In just 2 minutes, and then they were leaving. So that's how important Phantom Menace was. Now, whether you thought the movie itself was good, I'll leave that up to debate. I have my own feelings about it. I think there were issues, like with the entire prequel trilogy, and there were also cool things, right? Darth Maul, without a doubt. So the question becomes, what are we going to get from this 25th anniversary from Hot Toys? Unfortunately, I think the indication that we've seen from Return of the Jedi and some of the previous anniversary releases, even Empire Strikes Back, is I would caution you not to expect too much. I've seen the list. I've seen Darth Maul 2.0, Artisan Qui-Gon, Artisan Queen Amidala, right? All great pieces, but will Hot Toys actually do that? I'm not sure. I would love to get Darth Maul 2.0, having passed on the first one. I'm still thinking about trying to pick up the one from Solo because I like the mechanical legs and I like the design of the lightsaber. I know it's not everybody's favorite. Everybody gravitates towards Phantom Menace, but if I have a chance to get one from the Phantom Menace, sure, it's a great opportunity. Although that Darth Maul, right, from what I've seen, seems to be really good by itself. So I don't know that there's a need necessarily for a 2.0. But then again, we'll see what Hot Toys does, right? They might surprise us, if that's even one of the characters, right? So this is all just conjecture. Qui-Gon could be a potential. There are a lot of characters that they could do. So the question becomes, what will they do? Now, Marvel, I think it's interesting that they specifically said Marvel 85th anniversary. And I think part of that is related to the fact that, yeah, Hot Toys isn't going to stop doing Marvel figures, right? But next year is going to be, there's going to be a bit of a drought in terms of Marvel MCU properties, right? We're going to get Echo, which actually, I'm actually really interested in, right? Because it does seem to go back to the roots of that Netflix more mature theme, right? It's the first mature Marvel show we're getting, which is impressive in its own right. So I'm curious to see what happens there. But is Hot Toys going to give us an Echo figure? I don't know that there's a demand for it at this point. Even if they do a small batch, I don't know that people are going to be clamoring for that character. I would, as a Marvel fan. I'd love to have that. I can tell you already, and that's going to be something true for me with Marvel. If you're introducing a new character, I want it in the collection. So regardless of whether the movie or the show stinks, I'm going to want that piece, right? Morbius is coming home because of that. And I'd kill for an Echo, but I think an Echo would be more likely if the show is as big of a hit as, or not a hit, but as good as I hope it turns out to be. I think third party would jump into that. But I could be wrong, right? And then Hot Toys could just come out and say, we're going to do a Kingpin, their own Kingpin to counter So-Sos, right? So there are definitely possibilities there, right? There's a new red-suited Daredevil, which I think is very much the Netflix one. So there are possibilities, but will Hot Toys actually jump into that, right? With a show that's not as popular. They didn't do Miss Marvel, right? They didn't do any figures from the Marvels. Not surprising. I'm just gonna say I would have wanted a Miss Marvel and a Monica Rambeau, but third party maybe at some point, although third party seems to be avoiding Marvel recently as well. So there are questions there, right? I don't know what this line means, other than it gives Hot Toys an opportunity to pick up things, because other than Deadpool 3, which I'm sure we're going to get figures from, there's not much from Marvel. So to fill up an entire year, especially in a year like this one where Hot Toys almost hit 100 releases and 100 figures for pre-order, how do they keep that tempo going, or can they even keep that tempo going, right? And then the Batman 85 year, again, are they going to delve into comics? Are they going to delve into movies, cartoons? Who knows? I'm curious to see what we get from these. But again, I'm also not holding my breath, right? These could be comic concepts, it could be something else. So it's fun to kind of think about what they could be. But again, just cautious optimism onto what we're actually going to get. Now, the other news story, which is actually still related to Hot Toys, comes courtesy of J&D. And I'm not talking about their 6-scale figures, right? They're not for me. Again, I don't even know if I'm going to cover any of their future releases. I might, depending if it's a property I like. But one of the questions, they had like a live Q&A. And I was just listening in, and it was curious because one of the questions that came up was, can J&D do a 6-scale Marvel figure? And the spokesperson for J&D, and it's something we've heard from John from InArt before, right? But this was the most definitive answer I've ever heard, right? Which was, it was interesting, and it was that they have reached out to Disney already, right? They've reached out to Disney, they've reached out to Marvel, and they've presented ideas for pieces, right? And he said, we've got some of the statue pieces and the licenses to do some statues, but when it comes to 6-scale figures, he said Disney, Marvel, and Star Wars felt that the market was oversaturated, or just saturated enough, and they didn't want to oversaturate it by having more product come out. And he said they have a partner right now that they are extremely happy with, so they're not inclined to give that license for Marvel or Star Wars to any other 6-scale company out there, because they have a company that's deep in a relationship with them for many years that's delivering excellent product as far as Disney's concerned. And I agree. I think Hot Toys is killing it with the Star Wars releases. Hot Toys is killing it with the Marvel releases. Honestly, when you look at the shelf and you look at the other stuff that's not even on display yet, Hot Toys with Marvel, which is my thing, has gone so much deeper than I think any other company could even conceivably do. And we're still asking for more, right? We're still asking for third party to do more, and we're still asking for other characters like Okoye, Namor. I still want a Namor from someone. But even with those exceptions, it's hard to say Hot Toys hasn't done things. Like, honestly, Valkyrie, I never thought we'd see a Hot Toys Valkyrie, right? And there have been characters like that that have surprised me that Hot Toys actually jumped into a line to do. And I don't know that an InArt or a J&D would necessarily jump into that. So, or at least at this point in time. So because Hot Toys has that relationship with Disney, they've kind of locked the license up. And I think that's one of the reasons why InArt, J&D, other studios, I think they're going to be players in the 6-scale game, but I don't know that they're going to be able to necessarily eclipse Hot Toys as far as 6-scale manufacturing, because Hot Toys was able to lock down those licenses and do a good job with them, right? DC is another story, right? DC seems to, J&D has the license, clearly. InArt has a license. Hot Toys has a license. So it seems much more easy to get that. Given the state of Warner Brothers, that's not a surprise either. But just, I thought it was an interesting tidbit to discuss kind of the history behind Hot Toys and Marvel in particular. As a Marvel collector, that was interesting to know. So that was it news-wise. Again, nothing much, right? So let's jump into announcements. And only two, right? And in order of preference, the first one, without a doubt, Hot Toys came out of the bat. It came out of the New Year celebration, right, with the Mark II 2.0 diecast figure. And this one does conclude, apparently, the original 7 suits in diecast in 2.0 format, right? Hot Toys is making a big point of that. It's a Hot Toys Iron Man. They're beautiful figures. They're gorgeous, right? If you haven't collected any of them, you're going to be impressed, right? These are extremely, extremely beautiful pieces. Hot Toys does amazing engineering jobs with them, right? This one, again, there's nothing wrong with it. It's gorgeous. I like the chrome, the extremely shiny chrome look to it. The detail work is phenomenal, right? The accessories, it has decent accessories, right? The Tony Stark sculpt looks great. I don't think I don't think there's anything I can say here that is a negative, right? Other than cost, 400, and I think it's 450. Which is to be expected with this kind of piece. It's expensive. Do I need it? I'd like to get it. Not going to be a pre-order, right? There's just too much else coming out right now. And again, I'm evolving kind of how I look at collecting. Am I going to regret that? I could. I might regret that. But I have a ton of Iron Man figures in my collection. I still have the Mark 6 with the gantry coming, so that's going to be a huge piece. So I've got a lot of Iron Man that I'm happy with. So I've got a lot of representation of him in the collection as well. It's not to say this isn't a gorgeous piece, right? It's easily, without a doubt, the best Mark II that they've issued, right? I have the original plastic one. It's actually up there. You can kind of see it in the background in the gantry, in the original gantry. Clearly, that plastic one is extremely outdated, so I could use a 2.0 in general. And this is an improvement over the original diecast. So, beautiful, beautiful figure. I don't know that there's anything else to say about that, right? Highly tempting. Clearly, I don't think this is the end of Iron Man for Hot Toys. Hot Toys, when it comes to Iron Man and Spider-Man, they are their cash cows, right? So I'm sure we're going to get something else, whether it's quarter scale or they're going to do a suit-up version from another movie. I'm going to expect a lot, right? And I mean, they did Sicarian armor too. If it's Iron Man, Hot Toys is probably going to tackle it. I don't know where they go from here. I'm curious to see what's next, because I think that's where things could get interesting. But nice to have that complete 2.0 set. And again, very tempting, not something I'm looking to pick up immediately, especially in light of some of the other Iron Man figures I have and I'm getting, but definitely good. The only thing that I wasn't too crazy about was the base. I think the base that came with the Mark III 2.0 was gorgeous with the Ironmonger. I think the gantry, obviously, that's come with the Mark VI is a huge showstopper. This one, it's nice, but I just think it pales in comparison to those two. If you don't display with bases, right, or diorama pieces, I don't think that's a make it or break it point to anybody. But just something I noticed that immediately, while the piece is incredible, that one felt like it could have been done a little bit better. But that's a nitpick. That's a huge nitpick. But again, gorgeous, gorgeous, gorgeous piece, and something that if the time is right and I can get it, I'll pick it up. If I don't get it, I don't know that I'm necessarily going to be lose sleep over that. Now, the next announcement, and I'm bringing this up because I think it's interesting when it comes to the third-party discussion, because we're seeing this a lot. It's from Eternal Toys, and they're doing Interstellar Figures, right? And they're giving us the Matthew McConaughey character and the Matt Damon character. So they look good. They do look pretty decent, right? These are prototypes. They're probably photoshopped. If you get, they've got 3 versions, right? You can get the Matthew McConaughey character by himself, you can get the Matt Damon character by himself, or you can get the 2-pack. And if you get the 2-pack, apparently you get everything, so you can make a non-spacesuit Matthew McConaughey figure. Okay, cool, right? I liked Interstellar a lot. I thought it was one of Christopher Nolan's, Christopher Nolan has a lot of great movies, right? I think the only one that I have to rewatch because it was difficult to follow along with was Tenet. But other than that, he knocks it out of the park. And so I'm not surprised. I enjoyed the movie. I don't know that I don't need figures from it, so I'm not going to get these, right? What's interesting about this is now the 3rd company that's doing Interstellar Figures, right? And I covered this, there was a company that was doing a limited run of 200 of these at some ridiculous price, right? Because it was more custom pricing. I don't know if those sold out, but I know the pre-order went up. At the same time, Present Toys came out with their own version. Or again, they basically said, we're going to do our own version at some point. Okay, we're still waiting on those, but those could potentially be coming. And I think there was the Anne Hathaway character has already gone up for pre-order from another company. So you've got all these companies jumping into the interstellar market, and we've seen that now with Power Rangers. We saw that with X-Men, right? We've seen that with other properties, and the question becomes again: is there such a demand for interstellar figures that everybody's jumping into that kind of competition? I don't know that there is. I could be completely wrong, but the X-Men kind of makes sense. I feel like the comic or the cartoon inspired X-Men, I can get that. Power Rangers too. How many versions of the Power Rangers have there been? It's not an IP I follow closely, but I'm aware of it. So again, I can kind of understand competition there, or multiple companies offering different versions. But you've got very limited characters, and sure, while the movie was great, it's is it going to be like heavy fans of the movies that are going to pick these up? Is it just someone who wants space suited figures? Who are they trying to appeal to as an audience? And more importantly, is there enough competition to sustain 3 different companies doing interstellar figures? That's why I wanted to cover this, because I'd be curious to hear your thoughts on this. I've seen it a lot more over the past few months, but this one is just one of the most interesting competitions there, because I don't know that there's a demand for the license. So just some random thoughts there. Figures again look good, not for me, right? There's way too much stuff coming out, and while I like the movie, I don't think I need figures from the movie. Now next we go into releases, and Hot Toys, right? They had that image at the end of the year showing figures that were coming, and they're starting to cross things out, right? We got Buzz Lightyear last year, and this week we started things off with the Tobey Spider-Man. I have him in order. He's the last one I need to complete that set. And at this point, that with the end fight upgraded suit Goblin, the only one left is the final scene Spidey Tom Holland, which I also have in order. But I think this turned out great, right? I thought it was amazing. Is there a downgrade from the proto? Maybe. I think I'll wait to see in hand. And I know I've seen some complaints already about the seam lines on the mask and the neck. So I'll wait to judge in hand. But looking at really thumbing through the pictures really quickly, I think it turned out great. Again, subject to change in hand, because I've seen some initial reactions that aren't as positive. So we'll have to see how that pans out. But overall, a a great way to start the year with having a release of a figure people have been waiting for some time. And then the second one, which is actually surprisingly one that I'm more excited for, is Dead Strange. I think Hot Toys knocked it out of the park. Just like the Carnage figure they did for Let There Be Carnage, this is gruesome, and it's beautiful in that gruesome kind of way, right? And I know that's bizarre to say, but I mean, he's a dead character, dead version of Doctor Strange with kind of decaying. I again, from a scale perspective, that cape looks awesome, right? And it just gives the figure that much more presence. Not that I think it needs it, given how good it looks. And again, there were changes. I think the eyes are different. People have been pointing out some things, like even the arms that from the Souls of the Damned, right? Some people are saying that they're too shiny. Again, I'll wait to see them in hand, but first impression, looks awesome. Looks great. I cannot wait to get that figure in hand. I have both him and the Toby coming my way, so as soon as I get the final invoice for shipping on those, hopefully I'll have them soon. Although there's been a flurry of delays from Sideshow lately, so we'll have to see. But again, from a release perspective, I think Hot Toys started with two really solid figures off the bat. And that Dead Strange, I'm curious to get in hand, but just from a scale perspective and from the images, that looks like a standout figure. And if this is an indication of what we're going to be getting from Hot Toys for the year, I think we're in good for a great 2024. So again, shorter week, or shorter, smaller amount of news stories this week. We'll see what next week brings, but yeah, let me know your thoughts on these, especially on the third-party stuff going on. I'm really curious what you think is happening behind the scenes there, right? Or if they think someone else is going to be releasing these and they're trying to beat people to the punch, like I think a lot of us suspected with the X-Men figures. Just interesting, the choices in particular that they're making. And look, as always, thanks for watching. Always appreciate it. You giving me a little bit of your time. And if you are enjoying the content, please consider dropping a like, comment, or subscribing. And we'll touch base on the next video.